Captain James Hawkins stared down at the dead gray alien body on the derelict ship bridge, blood still seeping from the blaster hole in its forehead. The blood-stained holo drive in Hawkins' hand contained the technological secrets to make humans the most feared power in the galaxy. He had to get this drive back to Earth Command. Billions of human lives depended on it. Hours ago, Hawkins was ready to dismiss that strange signal as another alien prank. But the coordinates led to this ancient vessel drifting powerless in the void, and the horrors within. Dozens of dead crewmen from a mysterious race, all slaughtered by some overwhelming force. The only survivor was this scientist, Zorlax, who lived just long enough to hand Hawkins the holo recording. The blue-tinted image of Zorlax flickered. "Use our weapons, our shields, our drives. You must grow strong quickly, humans, or the Kragoth will annihilate you as they did us. When you strike back, strike hard enough to put fear into the Galactic Council itself. You are the galaxy's last hope against Kragoth tyranny." The recording ended. Hawkins and his crew stood in stunned silence amidst the carnage. Earth had to play this exactly right. One misstep and humanity would be ashes. The holodrive's arrival on Earth sent tremors through every level of government and defense. Mere hours after the derelict ship's distress beacon was silenced, that blood-stained device was locked in a triple-sealed briefcase and rushed to a top-secret military base. General Victor Graves watched with hawkish eyes as scientists in hazmat suits transferred their precious cargo into an isolated lab. Graves was a hardened man, even by the standards of Earth's military elite. His face was angular and clean-shaven, as if he scored away all traces of softness. When he spoke, his voice had a growling quality that made junior officers snap to attention. "No one gets in or out," Graves instructed his head of security. "I want this facility locked down tighter than a deep space listening post. If anyone so much as sneezes without authorization, I want to hear about it yesterday." Within an hour, he'd assembled a crack team of the Earth Defense Council's best and brightest. Engineers, physicists, programmers, the cream of humanity's intellectual crop. They pored over every schematic and diagram, dissecting the secrets of a civilization far more ancient than their own. The discoveries came in fits and starts. A new type of reactor impossibly efficient, an alloy that made steel look like papier-mâché, theories and concepts so revolutionary that Earth's top minds struggled to wrap their heads around them. But piece by piece, a picture began to emerge. The ship's faster-than-light drive, once reverse-engineered, could cut travel times across the galaxy in half. Its energy weapons made Earth's strongest magnetic accelerators look like pea shooters. Dr. Amanda Carlson, the lead researcher, pulled Graves aside with a wild look in her eyes. "This isn't just a technological leap, General. It's a goddamn catapult, 50 years ahead of our time at minimum." Graves set his jaw. "Then we put it to use. I want production lines churning this stuff out as fast as humanly possible. Retrofit every ship in the Earth space fleet down to the last shuttle. If this Galactic Council wants to underestimate us, let's give them a nasty surprise." As humanity's ships rolled out of space dock, bristling with advanced weaponry and state-of-the-art defenses, Graves turned his attention to the next phase of his plan. They had the tech, but they needed the best damned commander in the galaxy to put it to use. Admiral James Hawkins stood at crisp attention in Graves' austere office. The younger man's eyes blazed with barely restrained energy, like a greyhound waiting to be unleashed. "You understand the mission, Admiral?" Graves asked, his voice low and severe. "The Rapid Response Task Force is Earth's first and last line of defense. We need a leader who can make the tough calls in the heat of the moment." Hawkins' reply was swift and sure. "I won't let you down, General. When the Kragoth come knocking, we'll send them running with their tails between their legs." As Earth's power grew, whispers began to spread through the galactic community. Some saw a new ally in the fight against tyranny, a fresh hope in an age-old conflict, but others looked upon humanity's ascendancy with fear and suspicion. In the halls of the Galactic Council, nervous delegates conferred in hushed tones. The delicate balance of power maintained for centuries was beginning to shift beneath their feet. A new player had stepped onto the galactic stage, and no one could say for certain what role they would play in the drama to come. In the heart of the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, a heated debate raged. Representatives from a myriad of alien races argued back and forth, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear and confusion. At the center of it all stood Zorgax, his cunning eyes gleaming as he surveyed the chaos. "The humans are growing too powerful too quickly," a tentacled delegate from the Zudlox consortium declared, slamming his appendage on the podium. "We cannot allow them to upset the balance of power in the galaxy." Zorgax stepped forward, his voice smooth and persuasive. "My fellow counselors, I share your concerns. The humans' rapid technological advancement is indeed alarming, but we must act with caution and subtlety." He began to pace, his long robes swishing behind him. "If we move against them overtly, we risk inciting a war that could consume us all. No, we must be more clever than that." In the shadows of the council chamber, Zorgax met with a hooded figure. It was a high-ranking member of the Krigoth Empire, his face scarred from countless battles. "The humans are a thorn in both our sides," Zorgax whispered, his voice dripping with malice. "But together we can pluck them out." The Krigoth nodded, his eyes glinting with anticipation. "What do you propose?" Zorgax smiled, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. "A series of attacks on their colonies and outposts. Nothing too overt, but enough to test their defenses and sow fear among their people." The Krigoth grinned, his scared face twisting into a grotesque mask. "And in return?" Zorgax leaned in close, his breath hot against the Krigoth's ear. "In return, you will have access to the Council's resources and territory. Together, we will carve up the galaxy between us." On the bridge of the ESS Titania, Admiral James Hawkins stood tall and proud, his eyes fixed on the view screen. A series of red dots flashed across the star map, each one representing a Krigoth attack on a human colony. "They're testing us," Hawkins growled, his jaw clenched tight. "Probing our defenses looking for weaknesses." He turned to his bridge crew, his voice ringing with authority. "But they won't find any. The Rapid Response Task Force will meet them head-on, and we'll show them what human ingenuity and determination can do." The Titania and her sister ships, bristling with advanced weaponry and shielding, jumped to FTL, racing towards the besieged colonies. When they dropped out of warp, they found themselves in the midst of a raging battle. Krigoth warships, their hulls adorned with jagged spikes and cruel insignia, swarmed around the human outpost like angry hornets. But the humans were not defenseless. Their new energy weapons, powered by the reverse-engineered technology, sliced through the Krigoth ships like a hot knife through butter. Hawkins stood on the bridge, his eyes blazing with determination as he directed the battle. "Concentrate fire on their engines," he barked, and launched the drone swarm. From the Titania's launch bays, hundreds of tiny autonomous drones poured forth, each one armed with a miniaturized version of the alien weaponry. They darted and weaved through the Krigoth formations, picking off vulnerable targets with ruthless efficiency. As the battle raged on, Hawkins couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The Krigoth were fierce warriors, but their tactics seemed sloppy, almost half-hearted. "It's like they're not even trying to win," he muttered to himself, "like they're just going through the motions." And then it hit him. The Krigoth weren't trying to conquer the human colonies. They were trying to provoke a response to gauge the strength of Earth's new technology. Hawkins' eyes narrowed. This wasn't just a simple border skirmish. There was something else at play here, something bigger than just the Krigoth, and he had a sinking feeling that it had something to do with the Galactic Council and that weaselly little alien Zorgax. As the last Krigoth ship exploded into a ball of flame, Hawkins stood tall on the bridge, his mind racing with possibilities. He knew that this was just the beginning, that there were dark forces at work behind the scenes, pulling the strings of galactic conflict. But he also knew that Earth would not go down without a fight. With their new technology and the bravery of men and women like those on the Titania, They would stand tall against any foe, no matter how powerful. Hawkins allowed himself a small smile as he watched the wreckage of the Kragoth fleet drift through space. Looks like the Galactic Council picked the wrong planet to mess with. Admiral James Hawkins gripped the armrests of his command chair as the ESS Intrepid slipped through the inky void of Kragoth space. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, their faces illuminated by the glow of their consoles. They all knew the stakes of this mission. The fate of Earth and the galaxy hung in the balance. Hawkins had handpicked this team himself, each member chosen for their skills, courage, and unwavering loyalty. There was Lieutenant Commander Eliza Novak, his right hand and tactical expert, Chief Engineer Liam Donnelly, a grizzled veteran who could coax miracles out of even the most damaged systems, and Dr. Samantha Hayashi, the brilliant xenobiologist tasked with analyzing any alien technology they encountered. As they penetrated deeper into enemy territory, the tension on the bridge grew thicker. Hawkins leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the long-range scans. "Commander Novak, what's the status of our stealth system?" we asked, his voice low and steady. Novak glanced up from her console, her green eyes sharp and alert. "Holding steady, sir. The Kragoth shouldn't be able to detect us at this range." Hawkins nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that crept up his spine. The Kragoth were a cunning and ruthless enemy, and he knew better than to underestimate them. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the bridge. "Sir, we're picking up a massive energy signature ahead," Donnelly called out, his fingers flying across his console. Hawkins leaned forward, his heart pounding in his chest. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made Hawkins' blood run cold. A vast Kragoth armada stretched out before them, hundreds of warships bristling with weapons and armor. It was a force that could easily overwhelm Earth's defenses, even with their new technological advantages. "My God," Dr. Hayashi breathed, her face pale. "There's enough firepower there to glass an entire planet." Hawkins clenched his jaw, his mind racing. He knew that he had to act fast before the Kragoth could launch their attack. But first, he needed proof of Zorgax's treachery. "Donnelly, can you tap into their communications network?" he asked, his voice tense. The engineer nodded, his fingers already dancing across his console. "Give me a minute, sir. Their encryption is tough, but I think I can crack it." The bridge fell silent as Donnelly worked. The only sound, the gentle of the ship's engines. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the engineer looked up, triumph flashing in his eyes. "Got it, sir. I'm patching it through now." The view screen flickered and a grainy image appeared. It was Zorgax, his reptilian face twisted into a cruel smile as he spoke with a Kragoth commander. "Everything is proceeding as planned," the alien leader hissed, his voice dripping with malice. "The humans suspect nothing. When the time is right, we will crush them like the insects they are." The Kragoth commander nodded, his scared face splitting into a vicious grin. "And what of our agreement?" Zorgax waved a dismissive hand. "You will have your territory and your slaves as promised. The Galactic Council will be powerless to stop us." Hawkins slammed his fist down on his armrest, fury boiling in his veins. He had suspected Zorgax of treachery, but to see it laid out so plainly was still a shock. He turned to his crew, his eyes blazing with determination. "We have our proof. Zorgax and the Kragoth are in league with each other, and they're planning to wipe out humanity. We need to get this information back to Earth now." Novak nodded, her face grim. "What's our course of action, sir?" Hawkins stood, his tall frame radiating authority. "We return to Earth and present our findings to the Defense Council. We need to mobilize every ship and soldier we have if we are going to stand a chance against this invasion." He turned to Donnelly, his voice softening slightly. "Liam, can you get us back to Earth undetected?" The engineer cracked a smile, his eyes glinting with confidence. "Aye, sir. I'll have us back before the Kragoth even know we were here." Hawkins nodded, a flicker of pride and gratitude warming his chest. He had always known that his crew was the best of the best, and now they were proving it beyond a shadow of a doubt. As the Intrepid raced back towards Earth, Hawkins stood on the bridge, his mind already turning to the battles ahead. He knew that convincing the Defense Council to launch a preemptive strike against the Kragoth would not be easy, especially with General Graves and his cautious nature. But he also knew that he had the truth on his side and the unwavering loyalty of his crew. Together, they would do whatever it took to protect their home and their people. The journey back to Earth passed in a blur of tense strategy sessions and last-minute preparations. By the time they reached orbit, Hawkins had a plan in mind, one that would require every ounce of courage and determination that humanity could muster. As he strode into the Defense Council chambers, flanked by his senior officers, Hawkins could feel the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, but he had never been one to shy away from a challenge. General Graves looked up from his desk, his weathered face etched with concern. "Admiral Hawkins, I trust you have a good reason for this unscheduled meeting." Hawkins nodded, his voice steady and sure. "I do, sir. I have evidence that the Galactic Council, under the leadership of Zorgax, has been colluding with the Kragoth Empire to undermine and attack Earth." He held up a data chip, his eyes blazing with intensity. "On this chip is a recording of Zorgax himself plotting with a Kragoth commander to invade our world and enslave our people." Graves leaned back in his chair, his eyes widening in shock. "That's a serious accusation, Admiral. Are you absolutely certain?" "I am, sir," Hawkins replied, his voice unwavering. "And there's more. During our mission, we discovered a massive Kragoth fleet massing near our borders. They're preparing for a full-scale invasion, and we're the only thing standing in their way." The room fell silent, the weight of Hawkins' words sinking in. Finally, Graves spoke, his voice. "Graves, if what you say is true, Admiral, then we have no choice. We must act now before the Kragoth can strike." Hawkins nodded, relief and determination surging through him. "I couldn't agree more, sir. I propose a preemptive strike against the Kragoth fleet using every ship and weapon at our disposal. We'll catch them off guard and deal a crippling blow to their invasion plans." Graves stood, his eyes hard and resolute. "You have my full support, Admiral. I'll mobilize every available unit and have them ready for your command." As the Defense Council burst into a flurry of activity, Hawkins turned to his crew, pride and gratitude shining in his eyes. "This is it, people. The moment we've been training for. The Kragoth think they can crush us, but they're about to learn what happens when you mess with Earth." Novik grinned, her hand already resting on her sidearm. "We'll give them hell, sir." Donnelly cracked his knuckles, his face split by a fierce smile. "Aye. And then some. Those bastards won't know what hit them." As Hawkins strode out of the council chambers, his mind was already racing with battle plans and strategies. He knew that the road ahead would be long and bloody, but he also knew that Earth would not go down without a fight. And with his crew by his side and the full might of humanity at his back, he knew that they would emerge victorious no matter the cost. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into a cacophony of shouts and accusations as news of the Earth fleet's attack on the Kragoth spread like wildfire. Representatives from a myriad of alien races, many still unaware of Zorgax's duplicity, stood in shocked disbelief at the sudden and aggressive actions taken by the humans. As Zorgax himself strode to the center of the chamber, his reptilian features twisted into a mask of righteous indignation. He raised his hands, calling for silence, and then launched into a scathing condemnation of Earth's actions. "Fellow council members," he began, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "The humans have shown their true colors. They are not content with merely upsetting the balance of power in the galaxy. No, they seek to dominate it through force and aggression." He paced the floor, his robe swishing behind him as he gestured emphatically. "These upstarts, these primitives, have acquired technology far beyond their understanding. And what do they do with it? They launch an unprovoked attack on a sovereign empire, threatening the stability and peace that we have worked so hard to maintain. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber as many of the council members nodded along with Zorgax's words. The cunning alien pressed his advantage, his voice rising with passion. I call upon this council, the guardians of galactic order, to unite against this human threat. We must strip them of their ill-gotten technological advantages and put them back in their place. They must learn that in this galaxy, might does not make right. As Zorgax's speech reached its crescendo, a lone figure stood from among the council members. It was the representative from the Zylox consortium, a species that had long suffered under the brutal rule of the Kragoth. Enough, the Zylox delegate shouted, his tentacles quivering with emotion. I have listened to your lies for too long, Zorgax. You speak of peace and stability, but where was that peace when the Kragoth ravaged our worlds? Where was that stability when they enslaved our people and stripped our resources? The delegate turned to face the rest of the council, his voice ringing with conviction. The humans are not our enemies. They are our liberators, our allies in the fight against Kragoth oppression. I say we should support them, not condemn them. A shocked silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the sound of Zorgax's sputtering outrage. But before he could respond, another voice spoke up, this time from the representative of the Phyraxian Empire. I agree with the Zylox, the Phyraxian delegate said, her feline eyes narrowing. The Kragoth have been a blight on this galaxy for too long, and if the humans have the power to stop them, then I say let them do it. As more and more council members began to voice their support for Earth, Zorgax could only watch in impotent fury as his carefully crafted narrative crumbled around him. Meanwhile, in the depths of Kragoth's space, the battle raged on with a ferocity that stunned even the most seasoned warriors. Earth's advanced ships, powered by the reverse-engineered alien technology, tore through the Kragoth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. Admiral Hawkins stood on the bridge of the ESS Intrepid, his eyes blazing with determination as he directed the battle. The view screen was a kaleidoscope of explosions and flashing weapons fire, but Hawkins remained focused on the task at hand. Concentrate fire on their flagship, he barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. We take out their command structure, and the rest will fall. The Intrepid surged forward, its weapons glowing with an eerie blue light, as they locked onto the massive Kragoth dreadnought. Hawkins watched with grim satisfaction as the enemy ship's shields flickered and died under the onslaught, its hull buckling and tearing apart. But the Kragoth were not going down without a fight. Their own weapons lashed out at the Earth fleet, the green and purple bolts cutting through the void and ripping into the human ships. The Intrepid shuddered under the impact, sparks flying from overloaded consoles, and the occasional scream cutting through the air. Hawkins gripped the arms of his command chair, his knuckles turning white. He knew that every hit, every casualty was on him. But he also knew that this was a fight they had to win for the sake of Earth and the entire galaxy. As the battle reached its climax, Hawkins saw his chance. The Kragoth fleet, battered and reeling, had left an opening in their formation. Without hesitation, he ordered the Intrepid and its escorts to plunge through the gap, heading straight for the heart of the enemy's command. There, amidst the twisted wreckage of Kragoth ships, Hawkins made his final push. The Earth fleet threw everything they had at the enemy's flagship, a gargantuan vessel bristling with spikes and pulsing with malevolent energy. Missiles, lasers, and particle beams rained down upon the Kragoth ship, tearing through its armor and reducing deck after deck to molten slag. Hawkins leaned forward in his chair, watching the destruction unfold with a sense of grim triumph. His crew were performing flawlessly, carrying out their roles with a skill and bravery that filled the Admiral with pride. If they were going to secure humanity's place in the cosmos, this was the moment to do it. On the screens, the Kragoth flagship shuddered and exploded under the relentless assault, its reactors going critical and consuming the ship in a blinding flash of light. As the glare faded, all that remained was a cloud of cooling plasma and shattered debris. Cheers erupted from the human crew as realization set in. They had done it. Earth had struck a decisive blow against their would-be conquerors. In the aftermath of the battle, as the Earth ships regrouped and tended to their wounds, the scope of their victory became clear. The once mighty Kragoth armada lay in ruins, its ships blasted and drifting. Those that remained were quick to turn tail and flee, scattering into the void. The message was unmistakable. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive and weak, was now a force to be reckoned with. Back on the Galactic Council, word of Admiral Hawkins' triumph spread like wildfire. The chamber was in an uproar, with some members openly cheering the news, while others looked on in stunned disbelief. Amidst the chaos, all eyes turned to Zorgax, curious to see how the conniving alien would react. Zorgax seethed in humiliated silence, his dreams of dominating the galaxy crumbling before his eyes. But even more worrying was the change coming over his fellow council members. Where before they had been content to cower and equivocate, now they stood tall, emboldened by humanity's victory. There was a palpable shift in the air, a sense that the old order was giving way to something new. For the first time in living memory, the Galactic Council began to splinter along ideological lines. There were those like Zorgax who clung to the status quo, determined to preserve their power and privilege at any cost. But there were others, like the Xylox and Phyrexian delegates, who saw in humanity a chance for a new beginning, an opportunity to forge a more just and equitable galactic order. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the stars as the forces of progress and reaction battled for the soul of the cosmos. And at the center of it all stood Earth, the unlikely ally, the dark horse newcomer that had changed everything. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.